Xfinity Series 6 and NASCAR Radio and catchfence.com. You and AJ will definitely bring up the championship for average age. So do you ever see the Xfinity Series trend back to a place where, just veteran drivers can enjoy enjoy racing and, make a decent livelihood?
I don't know. It's a very unique time, right? I think you have guys like myself, like AJ, that have been around the sport for a long time, that are here and competitive and running in front. You've got a lot of young drivers that are coming in that are doing an incredible job. It's unbelievable to watch some of these young drivers come in and already have the composure and the experience and the ability to just jump in and go do it. I think that the advancements of technology have definitely changed the game in that regard, whether it be a simulator or onboard videos, things like that. I remember having to request onboard videos, and you might get one or two a year, but you weren't getting all of them, right? There was no shot you were going to get them all, and I think they were in 480p, and you couldn't even hardly see out the front windshield, right? Technology has come a long way, and with S&T, just people are able to come into sport in a lot different way. When I look at my first start, there was 62 cars on the entry list, I think, at the time, and 28 of those guys were full-time Cup guys that were going to race the next day, at Charlotte. So it's a very different sport than it was, and I was laughing this just a little bit ago, actually, about the Truck Series, and when I first came into the Truck Series and ran against guys like Ted Musgrave and Jack Sprague and Mike Skinner and Tom Van Ayen, and the list goes on, and you think back to those days, and I was laughing because they'd make your life miserable if you did something wrong, right? So I think there's always good to have guys that have been around the sport and kind of have checks and balances a little bit, but I don't know what this series looks like. I did have a Cup driver tell me that with the way the Xfinity car drives and how kind of on edge it is, that if Cup guys could make the same money running Xfinity cars, they probably would do it because they would enjoy the car so much. But I think that they both have their own place, right? The Cup Series car, just running Charlotte and doing what I do with Chevrolet and the Wheel Force car, the Cup Series car is a blast to drive. Now, granted, when I'm testing, it's significantly different. I'm on the only car on the racetrack, right? You don't have to worry about the other idiots where they're going. But Charlotte was fun for me because I was able to really start to get comfortable and see where it was at. And it is a totally different style of racing. It's very, very high-paced, very kind of just go where you need, where the openings are at, right? Nobody really has they're not thinking about what the long term looks like, right? It's kind of short term. Whereas the thing with the Xfinity car, especially here at a place like Homestead, where it is slick and slow, and managing your tires and you're never really at full grip. I think that it makes it a lot of fun for a driver like myself that's kind of grown up in the sport. So it's just different. I don't know that you'll see a full series of old guys like myself, but at the same time, I do think that there are some people that have come here and experienced Xfinity car lately, and they really love where the car's at, and they're able to enjoy it. Now AJ's leaving, he's going back to Cup. Cole's leaving, he's going back to Cup. So next year's going to be really interesting, but it'll be fun.
Let's go back up to Dustin.
Dustin Allgaier, NBC Sports. In light of what you're saying, where does experience, or how does experience still matter? And obviously these young kids are still going to learn things they don't know, but when somebody sees Connor Zillage go out and win his first race, we saw what a few years back when Ty Gibbs did it as well, that it would seem like that there's a gap that's closing, or where does experience matter? Something that you have an abundance of over some of your other competitors.
I think it matters when you drive from the airport to the racetrack. You know where I'm going. I don't get lost whenever I get to the tracks anymore. To that point, I don't know that it has the same place that it used to have. Maybe there's certain trends or different things that you can rely on, right? You look back at your old notes and you say, okay, well, when the sun goes down, the tracks tend to trend this way, or, different things like that. But, with the technology that we have now, those notes are kind of already there. We kind of already have that. You can go back and look at anything you want to look back at from past races, and I think that's where it becomes very different than it used to be. The other part of it is with guys like Ty or Connor, they both had to execute at a high level, right? Like they both had to come in, and they're both great race car drivers. Going to a simulator and going and getting those laps and being a part of it. Those are all things that I think are really important. It's changed the game for sure. I think I will be more interested. One of the things that I think from experience, that as somebody that's done it for a long time, the only thing that really helps me is like managing your week, right? When you race 1 or 5 or 8 races or something in a year, it is way different than running 32 races or 38 races like the Cup side. Or even if you get guys that come from the Truck Series, 24, 25 this year? 23. So you go from, you add another 10 races. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a significant amount of time and energy and effort, and the only thing that's really probably helped those guys is honestly the schedule since COVID of being here for a less amount of days, right? When you used to be at the racetrack for the Cup Series for 4 or 5 days, like, that was hard. It was hard to manage. It was hard to manage mentally as much as it was physically, and so I think if I had one area that experience really makes a difference, it's probably just in managing the weekends, for the full season. But listen, there's enough talent coming through right now that I don't know that experience makes a bit of difference, to be honest with you. I think these guys are going to be really good, and it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like Connor went out and won the race tomorrow.
Obviously, in the Cup Series, there's a lot more data than in the Xfinity. You can certainly study each driver individually if you need to. But how has the influx of data taken away your advantages? And how has it maybe opened your eyes to something that you weren't doing that has helped you become better in a way?
Yeah, I think it definitely goes both directions, right? I think you take somebody that has been successful because of a certain driving style, right? We used to always call it the Harvick line at Atlanta, right? Nobody knew what he was doing because there was no SMT, but they kind of knew the general idea, right? Well, SMT starts and everybody's able to look at that, and then you end up with 10 people running the Harvick line, right? And matching what Kevin did, and now all of a sudden it's a different story. They fixed that for us because they changed the racetrack significantly, and there is no more Harvick line. But to that point, there's drivers that have, their bread and butter has been finding areas that other people can't. And with SMT, especially on the Cup side, with SMT and having all of that data, if you are younger and you're coming into the sport, it's the best tool ever. I look at the 600 and what Cliff was able to coach me on just during the race. I would have never have learned that in the 3 hours that I was in the car, right? Like 3 years maybe, but not 3 hours, right? Like, just the way that we had to adapt throughout the race. And by the end of it, obviously the pace had picked up. We were on par with where we needed to be at. And, it changed the course of that day for me significantly. And, you look at last week at Vegas, right? Daniel and Joey both saving fuel. Well, years past, we would have never known how much fuel got saved, right? But guess what? Now we do. Now we are able to calculate it. Now we know. And it changed the result of the race. The 20 I thought was the best car, and it ultimately doesn't win the race. So, the data has definitely changed it. Now, I'm not saying you got to go back because there's advantages to it, right? But I think the next generation of racer is going to have to integrate themselves into the data way more than somebody like myself or any of the Cup guys really ever had to, and it's going to change the game for sure.